neighbor have a key just for the day, and then you can get it back from them, because by the time they get around to doing them all, it might drift a little bit. You might get your door painted on Monday, whereas she might get her door painted on Thursday. And those are things we aren't going to know until we see what they can actually get done in a day. And how many they bring in, what kind of crew they bring in to do the decking at the same time. So that's kind of where we are. I'd appreciate it if you'd consider that piece. And do we need a report on the master?
If you have one to give.
Yeah. Kind of backing up for one second here. We no longer have Pierre working for us as our maintenance person. He accepted a new position last Tuesday that offered him an opportunity to work more hours, which was his goal all along. So we're in the process now of interviewing for the maintenance position, and that's something that affects everybody here. However, we have got a fence out front, and it's our green split rail fence that's on both sides of the entrance and exit. That got kind of beat up. We've had some vandalism that has been done. People have, I can't even say who did it. All I can say is somebody's kicked it out in a couple of areas where there is no boards whatsoever. And the fence is starting to look pretty shoddy. It's got chunks out of the top of the horizontal boards. There are boards that are literally, you could use them for a rocking chair. They are so worn. I had an estimate to replace the whole fence, which was almost $5,000. We don't have the money for that. I also am looking into what the cost of replacing 50 of the 1x4 boards that are on that fence, and then having them painted. The replacement would be done by our new maintenance person, and he would also be able to do the painting. So that would save us a considerable amount of money. But I am just curious as to what your thoughts are on replacing that fence. It would be painted either green or white, whatever we choose or whatever they choose, because I think that would be considered an architectural change. It would require us to go around and get signatures from every owner. And I think it might be just better off leaving it green. To tell you the truth, it would be a lot quicker. I know that there are a number of us who don't like the green, but you learn to live with things, you know, it's just the way it is. So, anyway, that's all I have to tell you. And, absolutely.
Okay, I do have, I don't know if you remember Kevin, who just worked there part-time last year and the year before.
No.
But anyway, he's back in the area, and he gave us a quote last year to replace that, and it was much less than that.
Yeah,
So
this
if
is
you
just
like,
the boards, not the port, not
well,
the post.
well, it was, no, not the post, but all the boards. And so if you'd like, I can ask him to give us another quote, and it included replacing the boards and
That would be
painting it.
fine.
But it was much less than what you
$5
would-
grand. Well, that's because the price of lumber has gone crazy
Yeah,
up.
well, and that would
So,
depend, so
yeah.
if that's okay, I'll ask him for a quote.
Say it
That
again,
would be
Janet.
fine.
I'd like to say something. Say it again,
I
Jen.
said that Kevin is still listed on the employee payroll roster.
Yes,
Still,
he is.
covered.
And so I would like to mention, and I don't know if I'm out of line, but, you know, Tom, since he's on the board now, and his brother might consult with them too, because they did the other sign. Maybe you could be willing to help out with the fence and save us some bucks.
And I think, if I'm correct, that section of fence that's down has been down multiple times after it's been fixed, right?
I don't doubt that a bit, and we
It's
don't
in
know
cahoots,
who's
right?
doing it.
Well,
We're thinking.
Yeah, that's
And
what
We
I
don't
I
know
think,
for
I think
sure.
it's people trying to get over the fence so they don't have to walk another 20 feet down. So maybe part of a solution is to
Leave that alone.
put in one more post to make another walkway, so maybe they're not hopping over that part of the fence.
Oh,
But
so you
I
don't
want to-
I will volunteer my time for painting and helping a new maintenance person install boards and paint.
Are you available in the day, during the day?
Absolutely.
Okay,
That's cool.
any help we can get, we'll take.
As,
believe me.
as a member of the community, I will volunteer my time.
Okay, that's fine, yes.
I just wanted to point out that there are a few 80-year-olds still around who can paint. They painted all of the boards the last time it was done, and my memory isn't very good.
John, here's one.
Happy to help.
Here's one, John, you do it.
Well, and maybe as a community, we can
Have a big party.
have a fence party.
Yeah.
You know, people who can, you know, if you got a screwdriver or a hammer, we can say, hey, this Saturday, we're gonna put the boards on, and next Saturday, we're gonna get 5 gallons of paint and 20 paintbrushes and paint it.
Can I say something?
Yes, you may.
You've got a good idea, because the first time the fence was put up, that's the way it was
That's how it
handled.
was done.
It was
Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
community people came out, we had a party, we painted it, took care of it. That's a great idea.
We may still have green paint, you might want to check those.
I think we could probably
We do have
rustle
green
up some green paint after they do the doors in cluster two. We might have.
But there might still be some here.
That's
I
a
don't know.
possibility, I don't know whether it'd be in the garage.
Here, now that we're talking about paint and maintenance kind of stuff like that, I don't know if this has to be on the agenda or whatever the hell, but if every director could have a key to that, maintenance shed, right? So that.
And to the bulletin board.
Oh, and to the bulletin boards maybe, right?
Why don't you have, you don't
Yeah,
have.
'cause
I don't, you have a key, I don't have a key to the bulletin boards
I do.
and to the maintenance shed, because there's been times when I needed a can of paint, but I always have to find EJ, and then EJ would say, oh, I'll meet you there at noon. Yeah, okay, well, that's 2 hours from now, you
Well,
know, so,
let's,
anyways, we can do that.
we
but-
can talk about that in a
Yeah, I think
little
every
while.
director should have access.
The only thing that we have to do is,
Okay, all right, good.
the only thing I want you to be aware of is that in our documents, it does say that you can't take the golf cart out. Nobody's allowed to
Not
use the golf
interested.
cart. Okay, that's fine, that's fine. All right, that's
Can't take the
it.
golf cart.
Yep, no joy riding down 7th Avenue. So,
Cluster 3.
cluster 3,
Okay, cluster 3. This month, we were busy, we got our roofing repairs done. Even our flat roofs were, the membranes were, taken off, and they repaired and put new ones down and replaced shingles that were torn off from the hurricane. So, our roofs are now pretty much done and in good shape. I also had an electric company come, electric guy, and he actually fixed the pole lamps on the front of 59th Street, the entrance coming in from there to a light.
7th Avenue, not 15th.
Or 7th Avenue, thank you, Michael. 7th Avenue, and he fixed the carport lights underneath where everything was dark, so now that's well lit.
Dark.
We had a couple issues with rats in 2 tenants' attics, and, Turner came out, set up traps, caught them, and then I have a guy coming, this week to fix the ceiling of one of our tenants where the rat was gnawing his way through the roof. So we had that done. I had another tenant who needed a faucet replaced, and thanks to Nancy and her husband, they took care of that for that tenant, and they were very pleased. I have a guy coming to replace the hinges on our pool gate, which are broken at the bottom, so that was the same guy that's going to be fixing my tenant's ceiling, so he's gonna be working on that, and that's actually the guy you recommended, and John, which is a very nice guy to work with. I signed the contract, like you said, about for painting. I talked to Tim, and he is going to start our building after he finishes cluster 2, and then he has a small job, and then he'll be starting painting, cluster 3 and fixing the stucco. And he was also going to look at the gables and give me an estimate for stuccoing them and painting them, because after that, after the gables are done, I think pretty much cluster 3 will be in a good spot where we've covered and cleaned up pretty much the hurricane damage.
okay.
I'd like to add something. The lights under the carport in cluster 3 still do not work.
So they're not on right now? Okay, all right.
Is
So
that the big carport, is that the only one you
Robin,
guys have that goes all across?
I'll look
the
at
one
that
in the
tonight,
front?
and I'll verify that, and then I'll help you with
Was
that.
that the ones in front of Michael's, or Michael's, those are the front of Ann's in, that section.
And Carl?
Or
And.
Is that the section
and
she's talking about,
on the
or different? I can't hear her on the
or
phone.
back, whatever.
Down
Starting
Seventh
at-
Ave.
Carl here?
Seventh Avenue. Seventh Avenue.
Starting at Ann's and then going all the way down to.
Towards 59?
Yes.
Okay, that's not working?
That's Seventh Avenue.
Because it was working last night.
Yeah, we
So-
got pictures and everything.
Yeah, I took a picture of it and sent it to her, because the
Yeah.
guy fixed it on Saturday. Or Sunday, he fixed it, Sunday he came out.
Yeah,
So
but
I'm gonna
that's-
verify it, and then I'll, yeah, Robin, I'll help you, get the guy back out here, whatever you need.
I know,
Okay.
it's
Alright.
Thank you, Michael.
last
Okay.
I thought we were all set, because the picture
I
showed it,
put my
nice and bright.
on.
And I thought we were all set with that, so that's
Yeah.
something I was
No,
unaware
we'll
of.
check it out, and,
Okay.
yep, we'll fix.
Okay, that's
Okay,
it for cluster three.
All right.
Cluster 4?
All right, cluster 4, not a lot. We've, all of our roof damage, which was, minor compared to everybody else's, has been repaired. The shingled roofs, as well as the flat roofs, flat roofs didn't get damaged in the hurricane, but there was some, damage on the, or some leaking on the flat roofs or whatever, and, got that repaired. We have, been replacing some spindles that have, on the stairways and the walkways that have been coming apart from the rest of the or the, yeah.
Yeah, it's just, they're old.
Yeah, so we've been replacing those, and, I think we're in pretty good shape otherwise.
Huh? Okay, some of this is gonna be the same as what Nancy said about the insurance, but I think people have trouble understanding it. Anyway, contracts have been submitted on the carports, roofs, debris cleanup. Remaining issues are the end gables, which I hope to have stuccoed, and miscellaneous repairs, which have been estimated this week. There will likely be a storm assessment, which you will be able to pay with your individual insurance that has coverage for $2,000 in storm assessment coverage. Once we determine the cost of repairing the damages, you will be given a storm damage assessment letter. This letter will document the cost to the association to repair the damages. You may submit this to your individual insurance company to ask for reimbursement. We need landscaping along our north fence, and I think that comes out of the master, but I don't see anything in the budget in the master. There's nothing along our fence on our side, so I'm just gonna hold off on that. But I'm still hoping to have the upper deck on the south side replaced this year. I hope to be in a position to paint the entire complex as soon as the repairs are done with all the rest of it sometime later this year. Is that
Okay, and Edna?
Well, we had one unit that was sold, we have another that's for sale. There's not a whole lot going. I had some issues with our pool heater, but it's finally been resolved, and so other words, things are pretty good.
Okay, that's good. All right. Then we will move on. Consideration of towing matters. I didn't put it on there.
okay? So we have no towing contract right now. We set up a whole, we had an agreement with the company last spring to do our towing for us, and then they had an issue with some of our, one of our clusters, and they pulled out of the deal. And so it's basically sat here for 8 months, maybe 7 or 8 months, with no towing contract. I have cars that I'd like to have towed, and I don't have a way to do it, so I'm going to propose that we negotiate again with the company that we had. It's called Tom Tow, and all of our residents in my cluster are already all registered in their system, as we were last spring. Personally, I do not, as a director, want to get involved in towing. I want to have a towing company be ready to go in and do it. I'm going to give them a list of my residents. I'm going to register whoever's car is a resident, and then after that, it's up to them to do the enforcement. And it's just not my job to go around and tag cars. Janet, would you like to share with us, you've dealt with different towing companies, Comtow and other towing companies. Could you give us a little background on towing? Still with us?
Yeah, I can speak to a small portion of it. Hang on a minute, let me walk away, I forgot the kids are sleeping. I have my earplugs in. Okay, so with the towing company, I'll speak to Comtow specifically at first. They do a lot of associations for CNS, well, for a lot in the area, or the management company. And what they do is they sign a contract with you, and you tell them what you want. So if owners are allowed to have certain spots or certain carports, or if they have to have a specific tag, or visitors or guests have a tag, you work that out with Comtow. They have them there, they can provide them, and then they drive through once a night or once every couple nights, whatever it is, and they look for cars that are parked incorrectly, either in someone else's spot, or they don't have the proper tags, or guest sticker, or whatever it is, and they tow them. And the board does not get involved at all. And when the owners call CNS, contact the board, we tell them, it's not us. There's no negotiating with us. We're not gonna pay for it. We're not gonna waive it. You contact the tow company. Comtow particularly, I know, has a very good reputation because what they do offer is a website that the management and the board can log into to not only enter data if you want to update something such as a guest who's going to be there, or so the car doesn't get to you can enter with the license plates, but they also provide video. So there's no arguing when someone comes and says, I wasn't parked there, it wasn't my car, they towed my car, I wasn't over there, I had the sticker in the front window. Well, you didn't, because they have a video on it. So that's what I like about them, there's no argument. There is video, they wear body cameras, and they have video on their vehicles. That I do like about Comtow. As far as other towing companies, because there is an entirely separate statute that is regarding towing of vehicles within an HOA or a condominium, it is specific signs. You have to have a towing company on standby because their number has to be on the sign. The letters have to be a certain height. There's certain notification stickers or windshield things or whatever that have to be placed on the car before you can tow it. And one last point is, when you're calling them individually one at a time for a car, if a board member is specifically directing them, the board member is liable, now become liable, for damages to the vehicle during the towing. If you hire a towing company with a contract where they just come in and they go through and they tow as needed because people don't have the proper stickers or are not parked in the proper spot, the board's liability is taken out of it. If Comtow or whoever you hire damages the vehicle, they are solely responsible. If the board instructs a towing company to tow a vehicle, the board and the association are now also liable for any damages caused by the vendor that they instruct. So that's all I want to add to that conversation for you guys to discuss.
Thank you, Janet.
Charlie, I have a question. What if this doesn't work out and we don't want them? Is there a problem with getting out of a contract with them?
My understanding is that they'll pull up their signs the next day. If the board
Okay.
votes against them and, let's say we don't like it after 3 months, they'll pull up their signs and they'll pull out the next day.
Okay. So I have a couple of tenants that have been complaining that there's been abandoned cars for over 3 months in certain spots, and I haven't made any motion to go anywhere with it because I don't need a lawsuit on me or, whose car it is. I know it doesn't belong there because the sticker and the license plate don't match the one that I have, and it's only a one-bedroom unit.
Well, and we haven't had a towing company for the past 3
Right.
months. Yeah.
I have the
So
same
I didn't want to
situation,
take that
so.
responsibility.
There
So I
is,
think what
I'm
Comco's
gonna just keep using
Comco's
Comco.
offering sounds pretty good.
So,
We could give them a
Well,
try,
well,
and
it-
solve some of the problems.
one that Robin said, Robin, for not only stopping service if you're unhappy, but also things like the holidays, maybe Thanksgiving weekend, a week between Christmas and New Year's, you could just call them and say, hey, we don't want you guys coming through here, just leave it be. Now, they will. They're very good about that. The second thing is, before any of their towing would start, we will have a packet of information to hand out to every owner, instructing them that all vehicles must be parked in the right spot, they have to be registered, insured, etc. They have to have the proper tags, where to get the tags, how to get the tags, and the start date that they will be coming through and start towing vehicles. So we will make sure that every owner has that information before they tow any cars for you.
Which I think that's a good thing, Janet, because I know from one of my tenants who complained that we have, people homeless people going through the gutters, they're going through the garbage now and searching, who's to say they're not looking at cars and everything else, so having maybe Conto and signs up and everything will deter that kind of environment for them.
Right.
What are we gonna do about labeling guest spots?
Well,
Okay,
That's an architectural change. It requires, it is an architectural
Yeah.
change. You're changing the entire appearance of this complex.
yeah, well, we don't have to paint any spots at cluster one, okay?
Why
could
would
have-
you wanna paint cluster,
you
2,
could
3, or
have-
4, or 5?
You could have, to make this program work, okay?
I don't
So,
like the idea, Michael, of
you can
having
have
a
signs.
vendor telling us what we have to do.
Then,
It
do, wait a
usually
minute,
goes the
okay.
other way.
So when the plumber comes, or the electrician comes, or the roofer comes, you tell him how to do his job?
I don't tell him
think so.
how to do his job,
Right.
but I do tell him what I want. And when we told Conto what we wanted, they couldn't provide it.
okay, we did get a compromise on Comto. If you wanna, if cluster one wants to put upright signs
You can do that.
marking your spots,
We would've done that anyway.
Okay, well, we're willing to do that, so.
But
they will not be marking
I guess
your
at this
pavement.
point, when you're talking about an architectural change to, I don't even know how many darn parking places we have in this place, do you folks wanna see the word guest in letters that are this big by that wide
No.
across the front of every single parking place
Yeah.
that is not numbered and
Yeah, it's not every single
Associated
parking
one.
space, it's 4 spaces at each cluster. That's it.
I think it's a waste of time.
I do too.
Money.
And I think it's a waste of money to do the painting of the,
It's $3 a
guest.
space to have them
Yep.
painted.
And if this proposal goes down the tubes in 3 months, we're stuck with that crap. I have to repaint my parking places that they labeled like every couple months. Because you can't cover up that stuff. And they're surely not gonna come out and take it off.
Just for the record, it doesn't bother me a bit, I don't think
Yeah.
it's gonna
I think
bother
it
me.
makes it look like a cheap apartment complex.
I do too.
I do too.
Yeah,
So that's my
you know,
feeling
I
on
will
it.
say that there is an advantage to having them clearly labeled when you have a towing company that you're gonna contract with. And that is
It's
for your
ugly.
guests. Your guests, so that they know where to park. So that they know if they haven't gotten their tag yet and they're parked in a guest spot, they won't get towed night 1, they'll get a sticker and they'll know what to do so they don't get towed night 2. But if the spots aren't clearly marked, sometimes they don't know where to park. And that's the advantage to having them there, not just for the towing company to clearly see the spots, but also for your guests to clearly see where they can park.
I think that the problems that Comto will solve will be greater than the aesthetic, you know.
I kind of have 2 questions. I do agree that guest spaces or visitor spaces, or however we want to label it, should be clearly marked. They need to be clearly marked for anyone who comes to visit, because there's a lot of times people do park in places that they shouldn't. I do agree with Nancy in regards to, is it an aesthetic change? And if it is,
Is it ugly?
well, outside of ugly, we all agree the green might be ugly, but we need,
But we have to.
but we have to have a vote. So if it legit is an aesthetic change, then we need to come up with maybe a different solution. That's the only thing I have.
All
And I
right,
don't know what
let me
Tom told
ask a question of the audience, and this is hypothetical. What if we came to you and we said, okay, folks, here are the colors we're gonna paint your house. We're gonna paint the outside of the buildings fuchsia, and we're gonna put on, royal blue doors. How would you like to live in a place like that? That's how I feel about living in a place that's labeled with guest, all over the place. It glows in the dark, by the way, and, it is absolutely atrocious. It looks like you live in a cheap apartment complex. We don't live in an apartment complex,
Right.
we own our homes.
Does that, I have a question.
Yeah.
If you have a guest spot labeled, does that mean that an owner with a second car can't park there?
No, an owner can park anywhere, okay.
Oh, they
you
can
take-
park in a guest spot?
Yes, you
So
take
why
all
bother?
of the covered, take all of the covered spaces out of the equation, right? Everybody
Oh,
can, right,
absolutely,
that's not.
everybody has one parking
Yeah,
space.
that has-
But if
right.
you have a second car, do you get to park in the guest spot?
You can park anywhere on the property,
Yes.
as long as you
Oh,
have a
you
sticker.
can on the grass or the, 7th Avenue or wherever?
For you, absolutely.
No, I'm just saying, that's
No,
ridiculous.
yeah, that is ridiculous. You're not gonna park on the grass and
So
everything.
why bother having guest spots if it's for everybody?
And we
It's
also
not
do
for
have the
everybody.
two curbs
You just
already.
said it was,
Yeah.
you can
I'm
park
saying
anywhere.
It's, yes, but if you live here, you can park there and not worry about getting towed or anything. If you wanna take up a guest spot, which is kind of silly, but you can do it.
Nancy.
But if you
Let
have
me,
two,
let me, let me ask this
Two or
question,
three
let me ask
cars.
this question.
Mark?
What's
The
that?
curbs, aren't the curbs labeled already with unit
Yes,
numbers?
they are.
Yeah, but
They say
but
visitor or
you
guest,
can't, yeah, you
cluster
can't,
one.
you can't see those.
They have to be able to see them as they drive by
Right.
the back.
Right,
Well,
okay.
maybe we should have those repainted with a
They can't
glow in the
see.
dark.
Yeah.
Does,
Yeah, look,
so how does Comto deal, and I guess where I'm going with this is, in our covered spaces is our number.
right,
We've had this conversation, is our number.
Okay.
Is my vehicle registered to that specific location? Does Comto know, or do they
No.
have to get out and
No.
look?
They have to look at your tag or your license plate.
Yeah.
Yep, you,
Well, how do they know the?
But
conduct number?
what's the difference of the guest space?
In their
Yes,
computer.
it's labeled there, and as, a director, or however it is entered in the computer for a guest, which now their license plate is registered to a space.
right, see, okay, to answer your question, when they, run that license plate or whatever, it's gonna have an address attached to it, and that,
Right, so I'm saying the same thing I think she's saying. If you need to see that that's a guest spot, and you have to write guest big, so the Comco can see it, or put a stand up with
and
a
so
sign.
anybody can see.
Okay, my point is that don't they need to see the address number also to make sure that the car is parked in the proper spot?
No.
Well, especially in cluster two, because they don't have carports.
Yeah.
They have none. So something's gotta give with that. They've gotta be able to use their places, and council needs to be aware of the fact that they are in their right
So,
spots.
Yeah,
so
and
let
they
me,
will
let
be.
me ask this question, Nancy.
There.
Do you, if there was a stake in the ground in front of each guest space that said guest, is that better or worse?
it's a
Well,
tripping.
I've already looked at them, I've got the signs are ready to go, and they say reserved. Every one of them will
Yeah.
have a reserved sign in front of it, saying that it is for residents of cluster one and their guests only, 6202 through 6250, and that's it. And anybody else who will
Okay.
park there will be told.
Okay, so,
We're good.
yep, so we're
Yeah.
good, so,
She has a question.
But what about for like cluster two, we don't have parking.
You don't have, enough
other,
parking.
yeah, like how other clusters do, like,
So
what
what
do
we,
our
you
guests
will.
do? So like, we have to have our guests like park at Bell's and
Yeah.
have them
Yes.
walk over?
No,
Like,
no.
That's what's happening.
I
There's still too many. We
Why
still
does
have,
it no?
one thing I will say, I'm about 30% for talking to towing companies. Although I realize we need them badly, because we have got too many foreign cars in our parking place, our parking lot. And that goes for every one of you, I know you do. The
Good.
problem that I see is cluster 2, they don't have enough parking places, so they're gonna be coming over to cluster 1. Or they're gonna be going over to cluster 6. Cluster 6's residents are already screaming about all the people who are parking in their cluster who don't belong there, and they don't want them there. So does that mean they're gonna have to put signs up, reserved parking signs up too?
No, no. And I'd like to answer her question.
Go ahead.
Okay, so if you have guests and they come to your cluster and the 4 or 5, whatever guest spots that are designated, those are all full, right? And your guests come and those are all full. You give them a guest pass to put in their car, they can park anywhere,
okay.
so. They don't have to park at Bell's.
As
And
long
can
as
we
they're
get-
not in cluster 1, because we're gonna have reserved parking.
that's fine. You
Okay,
can have your
so-
signs.
Yeah, so you wanna make a,
So,
Can we make a motion
Wait.
to have Comto try it?
you sure can.
I'll second it.
I would go along with it for 3 months, but no longer, and then we
I
come back to
second
the
it.
table. I also wanna make sure that there are no kickbacks being done, because I've heard more rumors. And I'm not big on that kind of stuff because I know it's illegal. And if I find out that that's the case, I will not hesitate to pursue it with the police. I just want it clear
Thank
and
you.
known to everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second to hire Comto.
Who made the motion?
Robin?
Robin made the motion, Michael seconded it. Any further discussion by the board members? Okay, open it up to the owners. If anybody has something to say, you got a minute or
Yeah, I have a
3
question.
minutes?
I have a question. If we do this way with the towing, and I like the idea about the towing, because cluster 2, we have people parking. It's not, even the people that are doing what I'm talking about are not because there's no space, okay? On the side of 59th, there's a lot of people that are parking and just having their cars sometimes stay there totally overnight. So what the towing that would happen, is
Push
this
the
a,
button on it.
off.
is this a call towing, or is this a towing that would be a couple of times a day, one time a day?
It's just,
What
it's
would be the
whenever,
idea?
whenever we tell them how often. If we want them to come every night between these certain hours, or we want them to come every other night, or we, you know, but it's,
Okay.
they'll just drive through here. And one thing that they said, and look, I don't even know if this is the perfect
Right.
solution, right? But I'd like to try
Yeah,
it,
'cause
and if it's
I
not,
mean, in
we're
my
not
clu-
gonna
in
do
my
it, we're gonna
cluster-
stop it.
In my cluster, I like the idea because I'm not even talking about the people that don't have a place to park. I'm talking about people that have just like, people that have just done this for years and years and years because directors have just
Right.
not.
Well, let me tell you one thing too, that this guy said, and I don't know exactly how this part works, okay?
Yeah.
But he said that there are instances when it will weed out people that
Okay,
aren't.
now we got 3 minutes.
that-
so hold on.
I'll give you a couple minutes.
No.
You can have mine.
Charlie is.
Go ahead, but I wanna address it, I wanna mention
Okay,
it.
so my thing is if, because if they're only gonna come once, then those parking, the people are just gonna park there the whole day and one time, and that's, that's not gonna help. So my point was to EJ last time, if you're not gonna be the guy that puts a notice on the car still, if you're gonna be that guy that's just waiting for the truck to come.
They're gonna come through once or twice, however
Okay,
often as we tell them.
because then the cars are just gonna park there all
Yeah,
time,
no.
you know?
They'll
These
come
are
through
already
randomly.
things
Okay,
down.
all right.
They-
I would
this
like
is
to
what
make
they
Because we
do.
gotta make it that it works, you know what I
Yes,
mean?
oh yeah, don't worry.
Because you can't abandon putting a notice on the car as a director.
People are gonna see it and it's gonna stop.
Yeah,
people are gonna be like, I don't want my car
You can't be the director that
By that time,
abandons.
after 3 cars are towed, they won't be towing anymore, because people will stop parking there, and we're gonna be all plastered up with guests labeled all over your parking places.
Okay, so my last point is that you can't, get rid of what we've been doing for a long time, which has been the director of putting a note on the car and then calling towing and taking care of it then, and then just go to the one-time towing and then they're still parking there all the time. I just wanna.
But I
make that
still
point.
want to address the fact that what was voted on last April for this particular issue was that we were going to enforce the rules that you are only allowed to have 2 cars on property.
Exactly.
Not 3 or 4 or 5. Nothing in my knowledge has been done to get rid of those extra cars
That's right.
in this company, in this entire place.
And this will weed those cars out, and he said, and like I said, I don't know exactly how this part works, but he said that there are people that are here, he can pretty much say, and we know there is, that have not been vetted. There are people that live here that shouldn't be living here. Those cars will be towed. And that'll expose those people and, oh, Janet.
What I'm getting really confused about is that this meeting is showing me that whatever the board decides doesn't make any difference.
That's right.
Because a couple months later, you're gonna just come along and you're gonna just change everything back to the way you want it, or you're gonna make it something new. And this is getting a little ridiculous. Why do we have a board?
Well, let's put that
We
on
have
the
to
next
try
agenda.
new things, Nancy, in respect, I mean, we've gotta try different things to solve this problem.
I'm not denying that we have to try different things, but once something is tabled, there should be a time limit on how soon you can bring it up again, and it ain't 6 weeks.
I actually, Nancy, I personally like your idea. And I think instead of park anywhere you want, I think it should be, these spaces are reserved for cluster 1, cluster 2, cluster 3. 59th is open for any cluster. And at the end of the day, this will make each cluster director responsible. If you live in cluster 2 and there ain't enough parking space, cluster 2 needs to
Find somewhere to
find,
park?
well, they need to figure out what their issues are and why they have so many cars. And if cluster 2 needs to come to cluster 6, the 2 directors, and say, hey, you have 32 parking spaces and we only have 5. We're not asking for your land, we're not asking to take it. Can we rent 4? Can we just use 4? And that would be a deal between the 2 clusters.
Yep.
And
that's
I think
fine.
at the end of the day, instead of spreading it out to all the clusters, because if cluster 2 doesn't have enough space, and now they can park in cluster 5 or cluster 4, we limit it to the clusters.
I gotta tell you something, you can solve the world's problems, you can solve the parking problems, okay? This company, no, they do it at thousands of properties, let's give them a frickin' chance to try it here.
Let's give
If
them a
it
chance
doesn't
first.
work, we'll stop it. If it turns out to be such a farce and such a scam and such a ridiculous thing, we'll stop it. Let's see,
Can we
let's try
stop it before they paint all the parking places with guests?
Well, we're not,
Yeah.
we don't stop.
Can
at the
we
parking
stop
lot.
it
Okay, so we
before
have,
they do
we
that?
got the motion.
I'm asking a question, don't ignore me. I'm asking you a question. You are the one who is working with this
Yeah,
and
no.
Charlie, and the thing is that's a legitimate question.
Right, no.
Because you guys slop that crap all over the parking, and it's not going anywhere until we re-asphalt parking.
Which needs to be done soon anyway, so let's do this now, and then when we re-asphalt. But it's part of the.
I don't deny the fact that we need a towing company. I don't deny the fact that they have a reasonable, method.
And you don't
a
think all
tried
the
and
benefits
true
of that.
Method, but
Can-
I do not like the parking being painted and going the dark
Can we
white.
hire Comto with the exception of giving us 1 month or 2 months to try the parking thing out without spaces being
No,
painted?
because this is part of how it works.
That's their thing.
This is
Okay.
how, this is the.
I
this is
don't
how-
understand if there is a car parked in a parking place, when you go past cluster 1, you can see all of those damn things when there's no one there. But when someone's parked there, you can't see that it said guest, because
Right.
the cars are over them.
Right.
so it doesn't show up other than in daylight. So when we have people coming through here, when we have people coming through here who are looking for a place to live and trying to find a friendly community or something like that, and they see these letters that say guest, 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 all over the place, I would turn around and drive right back out.
Well, you
Because
can
it's
go, you
obnoxious
can go to
and garish.
communities that are,
You
that are
know,
identified,
maybe I should've
you
done
know,
that
you can
several
go to
years
higher
ago.
level communities than ours, and see it.
Okay,
Anyways.
I'm gonna do what's known as calling the question, and that's asking for the vote. And the motion is to hire Comto, to manage our parking.
Okay,
For 3 months?
so,
Is this
I'm
for
not
3 months?
I'm not accepting 3 months.
yeah,
The board can meet at any time and ask them to go,
Right.
so that's
So-
not necessary.
Well, that'll never happen,
No,
because you're, Charlie,
all-
because you guys have the lead, have the majority on it.
That's right,
So,
we represent the people in our clusters, and that's
Do
what
you?
we wanna do.
Yes.
Yes, we do.
okay, so how do we vote on
That's what
this?
I'd like to know.
Just ask for,
All in favor?
all in favor, say aye.
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 It's 4.
Opposed?
No.
Who's opposed?
I am.
Just Nancy?
Yep.
You got it, Edna?
Yeah.
Aye.